protesters, and they didn't deserve that.
Yeah.
I mean, you could disagree on the merits of the war, but every guy that went over there, they fought because they believed in what their country told them at the time, and they gave it their best effort, and a lot of them suffered greatly, but they came home and they were ridiculed. They were made fun of. It was, for me, it was, it didn't happen to me, but it happened to a lot of other people, a lot of other guys that came home, and I was back to work in my job less than a week after I got out of the Army.
Yeah.
So, and I came home and I had a wife and I had a daughter. So I was my feet were right back on the ground, doing the things that a husband and a father is supposed to do in terms of taking care of the family. So, but yeah, I did not have a high regard for those people that were protesting, especially as it applied to the way in which they treated the veterans.
Did you think the war was being fought in the right way as far as strategy, or did you not?
No. And this is true in a lot of wars, where I felt that it was a war that the U.S. chose not to win. And if the military had been allowed to do what the military wanted to do to win a war, they would have won it with far less, in a much quicker time, and far less loss of life and treasure. But it was a political war.
Yeah.
And the military commanders had their hands tied in terms of what they could do, and there was a severe price to pay because of that. So I absolutely do not believe that the war was fought the way it should have been fought from a military perspective.
Kind of piggybacking off of that, what were your opinions about the bombings of Cambodia and Laos?
I really didn't understand it. I knew that it was happening, but I didn't understand the context for it. And I'm not saying that that I opposed it. I just knew that it was taking place.
Oh, okay.
And I figured, I didn't think about it in the sense of trying to make any judgments around it. It was like, okay, fine, if this is taking place, it's these are military targets that related to a military purpose. So I didn't. That was the extent of my thinking at the time.
I would agree with that. What did you know much about also kind of piggybacking on that, the My Lai
Massacre?
The My Lai Massacre, I figured out, yes.
No, I didn't at all when I was in the service, and I learned about it when I got out, obviously. It was in the press quite a bit. I didn't follow it through the trial, but if I had in all candor, if I had a bias toward it, my bias would have been in favor of the military, only because of the things that were happening to the soldiers in the field, and what you'd go in. This is stuff that we heard through our training, where you'd go into these little hamlets, and you would be greeted, and then all of a sudden you're being attacked by the very people that were greeting you 15 minutes ago. So it just got to the point where you couldn't trust anybody, and so when I heard about the My Lai Massacre, I was very skeptical about the circumstances around it, and whether the truth would be fully told, because of the things that I had learned about in terms of what they were doing to the U.S. GIs over there. And so that's why I said I was skeptical, and my bias would have been towards the military
Mm-hmm.
maybe overreacting to something,
Yeah.
but not with contempt,
Without warrant,
not with
yeah.
contempt,
Mm-hmm.
or an intent for it to be with contempt.
At the time while you were in Germany or while you were training, what kind of news services did you guys get? Was it a military news, or did you get regular American press as far as like newspapers or radio?
Well, when I was in the States, you had full access to whatever. And when I was in Germany, mostly it was just the Stars and Stripes, which was a military publication.
Oh, not to interrupt, but is that in Full Metal Jacket? Is that like, have you seen that movie?
Say that again?
Have you seen the movie Full Metal Jacket?
Yes.
Was that what they're doing? The photographer guy? I forget. Whatever. Never mind. It's not important. Sorry. Go ahead. The Stars and Stripes.
Yeah. I remember the movie Full Metal Jacket, but I don't remember all the details of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I was over in Germany, the primary news source that I recall at the time was the Stars and Stripes, I think is what it was called. It was a newspaper. I don't remember really focusing on any other news sources at the time, and the TVs didn't have U.S. stations.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just that was the one thing that I remember in terms of news source was Stars and Stripes.
Okay. What was the overall reaction of the public when word was released that the troops were going to be removed? Or were you? I guess were you in Germany at the time? I think.
Say that again.
When they said that they were going to be removing the troops from Vietnam, what was overall public, feeling?
Yeah, that was around 1970.
Okay.
So I was well out of the service at that point.
Okay.
And I think I think people were ready for this thing to come to an end. There was I think the people were delighted that the GIs are going to be coming home. But like I said before, a lot of them were scorned.
Yeah.
By the public. And these guys all they were doing was they were trying to serve their country, and then to be scorned for that. When you come back, it's
when you're mentally and probably physically injured, it's not great to come back and not have a warm welcome from the country they've been fighting for years.
Yeah. Yes.
Just some other questions, just in general. What was the greatest challenge that you faced as an Army member of the Army?
Being away from my family. I mean, I really didn't have any. As a soldier, I didn't have any great challenges in the service. I mean, if I had been in Vietnam, my answer might be different. But
training had to be pretty rigorous, right?
Yeah. It's but it wasn't anything that I couldn't do. I mean, some of the marches that we had were where you're in your full gear, and you're marching 13 miles or whatever some of those marches were. I mean, that was challenging, certainly. But you were 200 other guys were doing it.
That's true.
So you sort of you pull for each other to try to make some things work. But other than the physical stuff, there wasn't anything that I faced that was too challenging. I mean, you had to deal with in basic training, a lot of the psychological intimidation that the drill sergeants put you through, but some guys couldn't deal with it. But my attitude was most of them were married, they had families, they had served in Vietnam, and what they were doing was trying to get you prepared so that when you went to Vietnam, you were ready to face what you had to face. And so that was the context in which I sort of looked at how rough they could be on you, psychologically, physically, demanding of you. You know, the old, drop down and give me 25. It happened all the time. You crossed your eyes, drop down and give me 25, and you gave them 25.
Yeah, football.
And that's how they,
not the...
5 o'clock in the morning, it's reveille. 5:30, you're outside doing physical training. And so, but that was all part of getting you ready to go to war.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was challenging in some ways, but you had to look at it in terms of what are they preparing you for. And if anything, I think the military's become more wussy than it was in my day or even before that. And I'll never forget one Sunday morning where we had a thing with one of the sergeants, one of our drill sergeants, and we're just sitting around and we're talking with them, and one of the guys said, well, why do you have to do us this, and why do you have us doing that? And the sergeant looked him right in the eye and says, yours is not the reason why. Yours is but to do or die.
Yeah.
And his whole point was, look, when you're out on that battlefield, and there's things that you're going to have to do, and you can't sit there and start questioning.
Yeah.
And that sergeant, and his name was, I think it was Sergeant DeBoard. When he said that, it was like, it really hit me.
Yeah.
I wasn't the one doing the questioning, but it was one of the questions the guy raised, and that's what he said. He said, yours is not the reason why, yours is but to do or die.
Wow.
And so, that has a way of hitting you between the eyes.
Yeah. Just as a few wrap-up questions. Have you been to the War Memorial, and what do you think about it?
Yes.
Okay.
It's very touching.
Yeah. It's somber. I've been there.
Yep.
What was there a specific moment that you can maybe cite, or was it just an overall thing when you realized that you regretted that the war wasn't the right decision?
No. I mean, it just comes to you over time as you think about it. And, you talk with people and you reflect back on it, and you just see how life unfolds and other things that the government does, and you just look back on that and think, if they got involved in something they never should have gotten involved in. A lot of GIs, guys that I grew up with, guys right across the street from me, guys that sat next to me in high school, were killed over there. And you look back on that and say, and the point of this was, and this is what our government has told to us. It was just, it caused me to become very, very skeptical of the government.
I can imagine. I think I'm going to wrap it up there, Mr. DiBernardino. Thank you so much for this. This was wonderful. It's been great.
Oh, hold on 1 second.
Okay.
I have a series of books.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That it's called the Vietnam Experience. And you're welcome to borrow them.
Okay.
If there's any research that you want to do. I think they were talking about time life or something like that. But
okay, that'd be great.
So if you want to, just let me know, and we'll arrange to welcome to stop over and pick them up.
Okay, thank you. If I need them, I'll absolutely let you know. Thank you so much. Thank you, by the way, for taking time out of your day to do this for me.
All right, you're very welcome. All right. And give me all my best.
Okay? Will do, of course.
All right, thank you.
Have a good night.
Take care. All right, bye-bye.